Welcome everyone to today's podcast space. Here we don't seek glamorous stories, flowery words, or embellished successes. Today I want us to listen to a voice from the depths of the heart. A journey that has traversed the darkest abysses of life, where everything seemed to have been stripped away, only to rise from there, carrying profound lessons learned through bitter experience. Lessons that perhaps only those who have lost everything can truly understand the value of recovery. The topic I want to share today might evoke deep emotions, even pain, stirring up memories that many wish to bury. However, I believe that in its rawness and truthfulness lies an extraordinary power, an endless source of inspiration for those struggling to find the light in their lives, for those standing at a crossroads, unsure which path will lead to peace. What I learned after losing everything, a painful, stark truth, but absolutely necessary. My name is Michael Santos. This name, perhaps for many, will conjure up an unfavorable image associated with the years gone by. 26 years behind federal prison bars. That is an undeniable part of my life, a dark chapter for which I paid a heavy price, not only with the years of freedom taken away, but also with the loss of trust from loved ones, the alienation of society, and emotional wounds that are not easily healed. But I am not standing here today to elicit pity, to dwell on the hardships I endured, or to seek easy sympathy. I am telling this story because I believe that somewhere out there, in the vastness and complexity of this world, there are hearts yearning for an unvarnished, unshielded truth about the path to rebuilding life after losing everything. Honor, freedom, relationships that once seemed eternal, a career that one painstakingly built, and even faith in oneself, in the ability to change and move towards a better future. My story is not a fairy tale with an easy, happy ending, but a living testament. Though painful and full of challenges, it is real. It happened, and the lessons from it can guide those who are lost. In 1987, Miami, under the bright tropical sun, a city of extravagant dreams, of sprawling beaches and endless parties, was also where I sowed darkness into my life and the lives of others. I was a drug dealer. It sounds harsh, but that is the stark truth, with nothing to excuse or mitigate it. I was not uneducated, lacking opportunities in life. On the contrary, I grew up in a stable middle-class family, received a full education, had loved ones always by my side, people who had placed great expectations on me. I was a young man with a keen business mind, a sharp intellect, perhaps even superior to my peers. But I used it poorly, going against all moral and legal values, choosing the easy path full of dangers and immeasurable consequences. I deluded myself with the reckless, arrogant thought of youth that I was smarter than the law, that I could outsmart the system, that those rules were not for me. I believed that as long as I wasn't caught, as long as I didn't leave a trace, then what I was doing wasn't wrong. Just a simple business deal, a way to make money quickly and assert myself. That was the blindness of youth, of bottomless greed and foolish arrogance that obscured all reason, leading me down a path of crime. But then, that fateful day arrived. Like an unexpected storm sweeping away everything I had ever had, everything I had believed was mine. The hand of the law, though it may seem slow in the eyes of the arrogant, those who think they can stand above the law, never overlooks wrongdoing, the harm one causes to others and to society. I was arrested, sentenced to 45 years in prison. At that time, I was only 23 years old, an age when I should have been building a solid career, nurturing sincere and meaningful relationships, enjoying the beautiful and promising aspects of life, exploring my potential, and contributing to the development of society. Instead, the cold, heavy prison door, with its haunting, dry clank, slammed shut behind me, forever marking a completely different chapter in my life. A chapter for which I would pay a heavy price, not only with the years of freedom taken away, but also with irreplaceable losses. I still vividly remember my mother's distraught face, her eyes swollen and tearful from crying in court. The woman who had dedicated her whole life to loving and sacrificing for me, who had always placed her faith and hope in her son, now had to witness her son receive a horrific sentence. A sentence that almost completely stripped away his future, the dreams and aspirations she had cherished for me. I saw the friends I once thought were soulmates, the brothers in arms who had shared my joys and risky ventures, gradually disappear as if they had never existed, like ghosts vanishing in the dawn light. The harsh truth dawned. When you fall to the bottomless pit of sin and disgrace, not everyone is willing to stay by your side. share your burden, and help you overcome seemingly insurmountable difficulties. And finally, I saw myself, naked, weak, and completely alone in that gray, harsh world full of rigid rules and hardened people, where empathy seemed like a luxury. 26 years in prison were not just 26 years of paying dearly for the terrible mistakes I had made, the irreparable harm to those I had hurt. It was also 26 years of learning to live again, from the ashes of a life that seemed to have faded away, a second chance, albeit harsh, to rebuild myself. Not just simply surviving day by day, counting down the hours in sadness and regret, but learning to rediscover my human worth, rebuilding the lost dignity, little by little, with relentless effort. I began to read voraciously, from profound philosophical works and the glorious history of humanity, to moving literary masterpieces. Psychology books that helped me better understand myself and the mistakes I had made. Words were like bricks, slowly rebuilding the foundation of knowledge I had neglected, broadening my horizons and awakening in me a thirst for knowledge, dreams of a different future. I wrote bitter diary entries, recording my thoughts, deep regrets, and secret longings for change and redemption. I wrote letters home to my family, belated apologies, sincere words of love, trying to mend the cracks in our relationships. I enrolled in university correspondence courses, diligently studying textbooks and lengthy essays, as a way to prove to myself that I was still capable of learning and growing, that I was not a useless person, rejected by society. I set a clear goal for myself, a promise to myself. When the prison doors opened again, I would not allow myself to become an unemployed ex-convict, a burden to my family and society. I would walk out of this place with a concrete plan, a mission to make amends for the mistakes I had made and contribute something meaningful to the world, however small. But even though I had prepared a lot, even though I had tried to build a good record in prison, with commendable academic achievements and rehabilitation efforts, the day I walked out of prison in 2013 was still a huge shock, a powerful collision between illusions and harsh reality. The outside world had changed so much during the 26 years I was isolated, and society's acceptance was far harsher than I had imagined. No one wanted to hire someone with a serious criminal record like mine, no matter how hard I tried to explain my transformation, no matter how many degrees and certifications I presented that I had earned in prison. No one really cared how many books I had read, what degrees I had obtained, or how much I had changed myself over the past 3 decades. In their eyes, I was still just Michael Santos, the guy who had spent 26 years in prison. That harsh label seemed to have permanently branded my life, like an indelible stain, an invisible barrier separating me from a normal life. I used to sit alone in my small, shabby rented room, looking at my rejected job application for the 47th time, then the 48th time, and countless other times. Each rejection letter, each phone call that never came, was a stab at my fragile hope, at the belief that I still had a chance to rebuild my life. I began to doubt myself, wondering, was I wrong to believe I could start over? Will the past forever haunt and determine my future? Were the rehabilitation efforts over the years in vain? Will society ever truly accept someone like me? Long nights, I sank into loneliness and despair, feeling like I was trapped in a hopeless cycle, where the past always lurked and suffocated any hope for a brighter future, where the doors of opportunity seemed forever closed. But then, in those moments when I felt like I was completely collapsing, when darkness enveloped everything, when the voices of doubt and despair echoed in my mind, I remembered the real reason I had survived those 26 years of living hell. I was not living to be accepted by others. Social acceptance is valuable, an important part of reintegration, but it is not the ultimate goal, not what defines my worth. I live to create real value for my life and for those around me, regardless of my past. I realized that a person's worth is not in the mistakes they have made, but in what they do in the present, and what they strive for in the future, in the relentless effort to become a better version of themselves. My goal is to become a useful person, someone who can bring something positive to this world, however small, despite the mistakes made in the past. I started a blog, honestly and openly sharing my arduous and challenging journey of reintegration. I wrote about the bitter failures, the doors slammed in my face, the suspicious gazes, and the alienation of society. But I also shared the small glimmers of hope, The relentless efforts to overcome difficulties, the silent victories on the path to rediscovering myself, the valuable lessons I had learned from my mistakes. I didn't embellish, didn't try to hide my dark past. I believed that truthfulness, no matter how painful, would touch the hearts of those who were truly listening, those who were seeking empathy and hope. And gradually, a miracle happened. People began to pay attention to my sincere sharing. Those who had gone through similar circumstances found deep empathy in my story, a source of encouragement to continue fighting, proof that change is possible. A non-profit organization working in the field of prisoner rehabilitation and reintegration invited me to speak to people preparing for release, sharing my hard-earned experiences and motivating them on the path ahead. A small business, perhaps seeing in me perseverance, a desire for change, and a unique perspective on the challenges faced by those who have made mistakes, hired me as a reintegration consultant, helping them build more effective support programs. And so, step by step, I began to rebuild my life from the fragments of the past, not with lies or concealment, but with sincerity and relentless effort, by proving with actions that I had changed. Today, I am not a wealthy businessman with skyscrapers or vast bank accounts, but I live freely, a freedom I once thought I would never have again, a freedom I cherish every moment, not just physical freedom, but also freedom of the soul. I have a loving family, sincere friends who value me, and meaningful work, helping others find the right path after stumbles, sharing with them the lessons I had to pay a heavy price to learn. And I am no longer ashamed to say, I used to be in prison. I made serious mistakes, but I don't allow the past to define who I am forever. The past is an inseparable part, and that is my story. A journey full of stumbles and losses, but also filled with efforts to rise and even small glimmers of hope. I share it not to seek pity, but to prove that no matter where you are on this path of life, no matter what you have lost, the door to a new beginning is always ajar, if you have the courage to step through it. Thank you for taking the precious time to listen to the very end of my story, full of ups and downs. Your listening and empathy are a great source of encouragement. I hope that, even for a moment in this story, you found some resonance, some inspiration, or a small lesson for yourself. If you found this story meaningful, or if you believe it could touch the hearts of those who need a word of encouragement, please don't hesitate to share it. The spread of true stories can bring strength and hope to those who feel alone on their journey. And if you want to continue following more honest and profound sharing from this podcast, stories of overcoming adversity, about the power of will and the human capacity for change, please remember to subscribe to our channel. Your support is a great motivation for me to continue bringing meaningful and valuable content. Don't forget to like this video if it resonated with you. Finally, please share it with those you believe need a word of encouragement, a source of inspiration to overcome the difficulties in their lives and find the light at the end of the road. We will return with the latest podcast episodes, bringing different stories, diverse perspectives on life, and valuable lessons that we can learn together. Once again, thank you sincerely for listening. Wishing you a good day, and always keep faith in the good things ahead.